I call the special meeting to order for Wednesday, October 22nd, 2025. Can I get a motion to adopt the agenda of the special council meeting of Wednesday, October 22nd, 2025? Mover, Councilor Ray, Councilor Popoff. Favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you so much. Okay, we have 3 items for consideration today. The reports that were on the agenda from the regular meeting on Monday, October 20th, 25, that were moved to the meeting today. First up is a report from Fire and Emergency Services Department. I'll ask Scott. We got Scott on the line there. Michelle, to give us an overview of the report.
Perfect. So Scott usually presents these to you, but as I transition into my new role as emergency management advisor, you'll see me more often. This is very similar to other flow-through grants that Scott presents typically at this time of year. So I'm here today to seek council support for the Regional District of East Kootenay to act as the primary applicant to submit a joint application on behalf of the City of Cranbrook to UBCM under the Community Emergency Preparedness Fund Fall Intake 2025 for the purposes of supporting emergency support service equipment and training, with the goal to make our regional emergency support services program more robust and resilient. We are transitioning from a contract delivered ESS model to internally delivered within the region, and this grant will help support building that capacity. This is a flow-through grant, and the RDK will receive and manage the funds on behalf of the partners, which include the City of Cranbrook, the City of Kimberley, Uckham, and the District of Invermere.
Thanks so much, Michelle. Can I get a motion that the RDK be authorized to submit a joint grant application on behalf of the City of Cranbrook to the UBCM Community Emergency Preparedness Fund, supporting the East Kootenay Emergency Support Services Fall Intake Grant, and that should the UBCM Community Emergency Preparedness Fund application be successful, the RDK be authorized to receive and manage the funds and to provide overall grant management and reporting for the project. Mover, please. Councillor Lissette, Councillor Peabody, all in favor, opposed, that's carried.
Thank you.
I guess discussion, was the discussion there? That's pretty straightforward. Yeah. Next up is a report from our Engineering Development Services Department regarding a site-specific exemption to the floodplain management regulations for property located at 305 18th Avenue North. Staff's on hand, Santana, to give us an overview of this.
Sure.
Yeah.
Good morning.
Yeah.
The application presented this morning is for a site-specific exemption to minimum requirements of our floodplain management bylaw. The requirement in the bylaw sets different zones for flood mitigation measures, which requires a minimum 15-meter setback from the high water mark and a minimum flood construction level, which does vary at a certain, depending on the site location. The purpose of this exemption would be to allow the applicant to do further site investigation and see if the site is actually a viable, buildable, or developable site, because without the exemption to the flood management bylaw, there's no room on the site to actually develop. So there's no design or concept of what would appear here other than the idea of a low density multi-unit complex, something 3-plex, 4-plex. And then other than that, that's all we know at this point until the site plan or until the exemption would be approved.
Can I get a motion that council approve the site-specific exemption to the floodplain setback from 15 meters to 5 meters and the flood construction level to 913.2 meters for Lot B, District Lot 4, Kootenay District Plan NEP 22135. Mover, please. Councillor Ray, Councillor Peabody. Discussion. Councillor Bissett.
So I understand this is you know, to allow them to investigate. But I'm hoping that when they're doing the investigation, they've got to take into account the impact of climate change. Because certainly flooding is a major concern with that, and that sort of erratic, intense storm event. And we do have a number of areas in Cranbrook that are vulnerable to that, even under, now, is that because they didn't follow these minimum guidelines before? Or did they follow the minimum guidelines and they're still subject to flooding? If you could comment on that?
Sorry, Councilor Blissett through the chair. The existing floodplain mapping is quite outdated, and our current or our updated mapping that was done in the OCP reflects a lot more modern expectations, including climate risks for the, I think, up to the 200-year flood. We've also will be undertaking an update to the floodplain management bylaw through the zoning bylaw update, which will further identify where the more hazardous areas are. Further, with the this site is within the hazard lands development permit area, so there would be a requirement for them to, you know, they did supply the geotechnical report, but they would also need to provide the, it's in the foreshore and riparian area development permit area. So that it requires a qualified environmental professional to identify areas that need to be maintained or mitigated, through their professional opinion. And then it actually even requires an additional like monitoring program for the site user as well. So.
Councillor Peabody.
Thank you, Mayor. I don't know if you know this or not, but has the city ever had to attend this property to like set up sandbags or do any flood mitigation, or has it been a relatively flood-free zone?
Councillor Peabody through the chair. It's quite a vacant lot. Or quite a large section or lot. It's a remainder. It appears to be the remainder of the parcel that fronts 16, 17. Yes.
Yeah.
I'll defer to the engineer.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Councillor Peabody through the mayor. So it's a remainder parcel from when a condo building was built across from the Recplex. So it's on the other side of the creek. So it fronts onto what would be 18th Avenue, I believe. The only access to this property is from the lane.
Okay.
But I'm not aware of the city attending the site to sandbag it because it is a vacant property if it's ever flooded.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Papa.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I think it's the fourth paragraph on page 1. It starts off, as a condition of this exemption, the bylaw requires that a priority covenant be placed on title, including waiver of liability in favor of the city of Cranbrook. I'm not a lawyer, but what does that mean?
Councillor Popoff through the chair. The covenant, the floodplain covenant in favor of the city would be to remove that risk from the city that we're allowing this development to happen. So it's the owner agreeing that they've requested this and they accept that risk because they're within that floodplain area.
Then we're off the hook.
Yes.
Councillor Ray.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm pleased to see this kind of proposed infill development come forward, and I think it's a good process. I'm in favor of this step because it allows those further investigations, and I'm confident in that professional process.
Thank you. Further? All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you. Thanks, Nancy. Thanks, Curtis. Last report for consideration is from our engineering department and the CEO's office regarding property located at 22 Briar Avenue Northwest. CEO Fritcher will speak to this.
All right, thank you, Council. So this property has a very long history with the city of Cranbrook. And actually, I'll just go back, if you allow me. It has a very long history in general because I was born on this piece of land, believe it or not. So is probably a few people in this room, but the new hospital that is currently operational was built. It just wasn't running yet. So I was one of the last group of kids born in that old hospital that used to be here. So here we are. Through the years, the property fell into disrepair. It's used for a number of functions, but it did become quite derelict, and the city had issued remediation orders to clean up the property on a few occasions with the previous owner, none of which were complied with. And then that was exasperated with the fire at the Knights Hall building that left. If council recalls, we had an emergency council meeting during the Christmas holidays that year. And what we had to do then is issue a remediation order to allow for the demolition of the building because the shell had burnt out and the building was in danger of collapsing over the sidewalk and onto the street. So then that demolition occurred, leaving another pile of rubble on a property already filled with a lot of debris. And so that rubble pile, though, had additional problems, including what's known as friable asbestos. So what that means is asbestos in the building materials that become airborne during wind and dry events. So what I've updated the report to include is, as we were named in addition to the owner under a health order by Interior Health, an enforcement order to prevent that friable asbestos from blowing around the neighborhood. So through some collaboration, we were able to use fiber lock on there, which is basically spraying it with a glue to keep it together. So we do have that existing environmental order. There are a number of remediation orders that the city has placed on that property. And also I included in the report the letter from the school district outlining their concerns for the students in the area. So so there's a lot of history with that property. Layered on top of that was the previous owner not paying taxes for a number of years, which resulted in the property going up for tax sale. And because of the, unattractive nature of that property, nobody else bid on it. And what happens during tax sale is the city then becomes what's known as the deemed purchaser if nobody else picks it up. So it landed in our lap. The 1 year redemption period then became enforced last September, allowing 1 year for that property to be redeemed by the owner paying the taxes, and they could take back the property. So during that 1 year, and what we did put out in the media to the community is, although the city was the deemed purchaser of the land, we didn't actually own it, so we couldn't do anything to clean it up, because if we did spend a bunch of taxpayer money, the property owner could come back, redeem it, and have a cleaned up property. Thank you to the taxpayers of Cranbrook, which would be unacceptable to the taxpayers. So we had to leave it. So it has sat in that condition now in a very poor state for quite some time. On October 7th, we became the owner of the land. It is now registered at the Land Title Office to the city of Cranbrook. So that's why I am here before you today, and Curtis is here as well. We walked the site and had a study done under council's direction to prepare for today. In addition to, the fear of all of that debris on the site, Councillor Blissett and the mayor went to the regional district and proposed a reduction in tipping fees for that kind of debris removal, which was successful, thankfully, for the region through the regional district, which would reduce the tipping fees on this site by 50%. So essentially, we're still estimating the cost of tipping fees on this site at $500,000. Without that reduction through the regional district, through those efforts, it would have been $1 million. So significant savings to the taxpayers of Cranbrook as we kind of saw the train coming. The light was coming down the tunnel. We knew we were going to get run over, and here we are. There's a $500,000 savings. Through that study now, we know the cost of cleanup for the surface. So I just want to reiterate that we've broken the project into phases. So phase 1 being the surface cleanup. Phase 2 is if we want to do the environmental work, which requires drilling and testing of the soils. That's a separate project. And then any environmental remediation, we call it phase 2, and phase 3 is then preparing the property for future use and sale as a clean site. During any one of these phases, council could choose to simply put the property up for sale and see what happens. So I just want to say that. But why we're here today is we've prepared Curtis and his team through ProTech has been working on a plan for the environmental management of the cleanup of the site. And what that would basically look like is taking the site down, just like the Kootenai Springs building, where you saw the building taken down and then what was left from a very ugly site to just like a plain flat parking lot with no features, no structure. That's what we look at for this site, and leaving maybe a little bit of the shrubbery and some trees on the residential end against the residential properties. But cleaning it up to prevent, sort of illegal camping on that. But otherwise you would have basically a bare lot with no fences, no bushes, no trees, no nothing, just flat bare lot, even the removal of the foundations, because we can take the cement over to the yard and have them crushed later for road projects. So it's clean cement in the basement foundation. So that'll save some money. Lastly is the bill is quite high. We're estimating $1.29 million for the surface cleanup. Fortunately, we did have an appraisal done in 2022. The appraisal came back as the value as is with the garbage on there as it is today at $615,000 to $777,000. The hypothetical value as a cleaned up property is about $1.275 million to $1.43 million. But then again, it all depends on market conditions at the time of sale and what the future use is. So I mean, certainly it's in the mapping I've included in the report, it's 3 acres of land. It's very close to the downtown. There's a lot of potential here for a lot of things, and Cranbrook's really turned around the downtown. So for high density housing, there's opportunities. For potentially a commercial use, there's a lot of opportunities, potentially commercial on the bottom, residential on top. Like, there's opportunities here for this property. So as in the report, the public acceptance of the look of that site and the danger to students with the friable asbestos and all the conditions people have lived with for so long are probably going to have very little patience now that it's owned by the city. So this report is asking for council's support for the funding in order to do the surface land cleanup as outlined in the report here.
Thank you very much, Mark. Can I get a motion that council approve up to $1,290,000 for a site demolition and phase 1 surface cleanup of 22 Briar Avenue Northwest, former Knights Hall and Tudor House, to be funded from the land sales reserve, and further that council approve a budget amendment increasing transfers from reserves by $1,290,000 and adding a new project to the capital plan valued at $1,290,000 titled 22 Briar Avenue Northwest Cleanup. Mover, please. Councillor Popoff, Councillor Peabody. Discussion. We'll go on table. Councillor Popoff, Councillor Ray.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. So if we sell it as is, if we could sell it, we'll actually make $600 and whatever thousand. If we spend the money, we'll break even, but we'll probably sell it more quickly.
And I'd have to defer to Charlotte if we have any encumbrances on there to date, because the costs of some of the things like the abatements and now we're going to do, oh, sorry, I'm having a mental gap here. We have to secure the buildings because now that the city owns it, there's some illegal use of the buildings and camping on site. So we actually have to go and ensure the buildings are secured. So there are cost encumbrances on there, and I'm not sure what the dollar values of those are at this point.
Through to council, I believe that the upset price was somewhere around $72,000. Plus there was about $30,000 sitting in receivables. That does not include the cost of the application that we did either earlier this year or late last year to secure the airborne particles. So, there's at least another, I would say 300, that was that application, $200,000? It's 20,000. Yeah, so just over $100,000 we have already invested. That does not address any of the things that CAO Virtue has just referred to. What, as a minimum, do we have to do now to, now that we own it, what's the minimum we need to spend to secure the property in terms of insuring, what type of insurance would be required by the city to deal with that. I'm not sure if there would be any additional cost to that. So, yeah.
Thank you for that. I think we do have the duty to clean it up for safety reasons, and the monies can be well spent. The ultimate goal here is to get it market ready, whether it's just surface cleanup or greater work, but get it market ready for future sale, so that land can be utilized properly. So I'm in favor.
Councillor Ray?
Thank you, Mayor. So just to clarify, the 1.2 million and change is just for phase one. And if Councillor Popoff says yes, I see the CAO nodding. Excellent. We have confirmation from both sources. And then if council would come back to council for consideration regarding phase two, that would be separate.
Through the mayor to Councillor Ray, so certainly that's correct. And, you know, as I said, at any time during this process, even today, council could direct staff to sell it. However, you know, even at an upset sale price of about 70,000 in the tax sale, it wasn't sellable. So I'm not sure we could ask much for it.
Very good. Thank you. Yeah, I think this would be an important service to the community to clean up this site. Certainly, you know, school district number 5 would appreciate that, as would the folks in the neighborhood. And it is, you know, it's encouraging to see some of these issues being addressed in the community. It was a private owner that addressed the Springs building that was on the strip. So it's great to see that change, and it would be, I think, really positive for the community in several ways to see this addressed. I was wondering which reserves or reserve will we be using to fund this expense?
Councillor Ray, through Mayor Price, the land sales reserve.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Peabody?
Thank you, Mayor. Charlotte, with the $1.2 million that would come out of that reserve, how would that be accounted for if this council or a future council decided to donate this land for like a low-income housing project?
Councillor Peabody, through the mayor, there would be no recovery then of the amount spent, and it would be a donated asset.
Okay, so would that $1.2 million just be recovered by property tax then to replenish the reserve?
Councillor Peabody, through the mayor, if that was council's direction, that taxes resulting directly from that particular piece of property be directed into the land sales reserve, that could be a decision of council at the time.
Okay.
The intent is the land sales reserve is the fund when we sell land.
Yeah.
For example, the outstanding $2.5 million from the Peak property would be deposited in there. Like if we sell this property, the intent is just to replenish that fund back.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's the main purpose of that fund.
Yeah, and I think my fear is, it would, obviously it'd be great to sell the property, but my fear is that a future council might decide to donate this property. I'm just wondering how that would work.
As you mentioned, Councillor Peabody, through the mayor, it would just result in a drawdown on that reserve, and just disable a future council from having that reserve available for purchasing land for strategic purposes.
Yeah, and sorry, Charlotte, go ahead.
Pardon me, Councillor Peabody, through the mayor. It would also, it could get complicated depending on to whom the land is donated, whether or not that organization actually pays taxes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Okay, my second question, if I may. This may be a half serious question and probably not possible because of the asbestos on this property, but we have a giant gravel pit that needs to get filled in next door to this property. Is there any of these materials that we could transfer to our own dumping site as opposed to going to the regional district?
So I'll ask Curtis to take that because that's exactly what's happening with a lot of the cement products, not the asbestos. But Curtis, could you please answer that?
Yeah, through the mayor to Councillor Peabody. So the intent is some of the pre-planning work we've been doing is testing a lot of the materials on site to determine what is actually asbestos containing or contaminated on the two existing standing buildings and some of the foundations. So the results so far show that the foundations are free of hazardous materials. So the intent would be to take the concrete and the brick to the public works yard, which we'd use to create composite material that we use as road base for other projects. So it will bring the cost down, and that's been some of the variables in the estimate, is trying to figure out exactly what's contaminated and what's not. So the 1.29 is what we're definitely hoping is the worst case, and I think there's opportunity to try and bring that down for sure. So
Okay, and then one last question, if I may. This site has been known in the past to attract derelict vehicles and abandoned trailers and everything else in between. In the meantime, while this property is being used, is there something that we could, while this property is vacant, waiting to be sold, is there some use the city could have for this property, or could we use it for, transport trailer parking that might be happening on other streets of Industrial Road? Because I think if the property is being used for one thing or another, it might help keep, unwanted users off that property.
Councillor Peabody, through the mayor, possibly. So we're not going to make it into exactly a perfect parking lot, because some of the goal is to keep the cost of this phase one down in case someone's going to dig it all up to do another development. So where the foundations are removed, it'll just be sloped, not flattened. But the intent is that the final product would appear to be a mostly flat surface, so that it's really discouraging from any kind of undesirable use in camping, with no structures to hide behind or under, like a completely flat lot. And as the city being the owner, if we did see somebody setting up shop there, we'd be on them right away.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah, just before we move around again, a couple of comments here. Certainly, now that we own the property, and I think the public should realize that we didn't own this property and couldn't move forward until October. So, there's been delays. So just the entire legal process going forward, the city really could not undertake any further remedial action over there until we actually owned it. Now that we own it, people say sell as is. Obviously that's another recipe for disaster. You sell it to somebody, and of course you with the intent that they're going to clean it up, we may be starting this process all over again. So I think the responsible thing is the city takes control, undertakes the cleanup. And again, we own it now. That would be our expectation of any other property owner in the community. Clean it up ASAP. So I think we're well on the right track. We will take possession of this, and 3 acres of property is pretty prime location. That gives the city a lot of options going forward as far as conditions. We can actually put conditions on this property as we are the owner as to what type of use going forward we want, and we can also apply timelines and conditions to that, so that we would see a project undertaken and started and completed in timelines that the city felt was favorable to the city. So, yeah, I think this is absolutely the right step. Councillor Papa.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. This is exciting. Any idea, anticipation of what the timeline would be for cleanup?
Through the mayor to Councillor Popoff, if the budget is approved, my hope is that I'll have the contract procurement document live on BC Bid either this afternoon or tomorrow morning. So Beautiful. A lot of the pre-work has happened already. So if this is approved, we'll be moving very quickly.
So come springtime, it'll be cleaned up?
The intent right now on the document would be that the site would be cleaned up by December 18th of this year.
Thank you.
Good stuff. Further, council? Other question, all in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you, guys. Boy, this has been a long one coming, and everybody that was involved. It looks like we're well out in front of this right now, and we're ready to roll. So great work by staff for being on this and getting out in front of it the way you have. We have one admin update today. It's from Finance Department regarding the northern boundary expansion. We got Charlotte here to give us a little bit of a overview of what this involves.
Thank you, Mayor. So because this is so long ago, that this began. I'll provide a little bit more detail than I otherwise normally would. Oh, pardon me. So in 2007, the city's northern boundary was extended to incorporate Shadow Mountain subdivision and the properties located between the then city boundary and the new subdivision. Under the letters patent issued by the province, affected properties would continue to pay property value taxes at the provincial rural rate taxes until the earliest of the 2028 taxation year. This provided a 20-year window for property owners to plan for the impact of the municipal rates. And B, the taxation year following connection of the property to municipal water or sewer, rezoning of the property, or registration of a subdivision plan or bare land strata for the property. Once any of the above conditions were met, City of Cranbrook property value tax rates would apply in the following year. The latest that the City of Cranbrook property value tax rates would apply would be 20 years after the boundary expansion took effect, which is January 1st, 2028. As of May 2025, the admin update does say 22, but it was 20. It's actually 20 because two properties met one of those conditions previously and we're no longer we're no longer taxed at the rural tax rate in 2025. Pardon me. So as of May 2025, 20 properties had not been subject to any of the conditions that would have caused them to be charged City of Cranbrook tax rates. Immediately following the release of the city's 2025 property tax notices, letters were sent to each of the 20 property owners who are still paying taxes at the rural rate. The letter gave background information and served to provide property owners with 3 years' notice of the upcoming change to their tax rate. And we've attached a copy of the letter that was sent out to the administration update.
Thank you, Charlotte. Council, any comments, questions? Councillor Papa.
Thank you. So most of the properties out there do not have connection to municipal water and sewer, rezoning, or those three ABC clauses. So just so it's clear in my mind, regardless of that, they still will be now in 2028 being charged city taxes, not the rural rate.
Councillor Popoff through the mayor. That's correct.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor. Oh, sorry.
Pardon me. Yes. So the fact that they're not connected to water and sewer, if they are able to connect to water and sewer, and I don't know if any of them are, frontage taxes are another type of tax, but we're here talking about general property taxes that will come into effect on in 20 years.
Thank you. If I may, any suggested numbered dollar values for what the difference in tax rates might be for the average property? I'm asking you to speculate here, Charlotte, but just a bit of a understanding.
Councillor Popoff through the mayor, our analysis shows that the taxes will approximately double.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Peabody.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, I guess we're looking at redoing our utility rates. The city isn't looking at redoing our property taxes by any means as far as how they're calculated. Being that these are, I would assume larger lots. I think usually a lot of lots in the RDEK are 5 acres, which is pretty uncommon to find within city limits. Should there be some other form of like property designation for these lots that is different from what we find within the traditional city limits of Cranbrook that they can apply for? Like I know like hobby farms and stuff like that might be an option. Just what are your thoughts on that?
Pardon me, Councillor Peabody through the mayor. Property classes are designated by legislation. So the city certainly has no options there to provide opportunities. Farming, I'm not terribly familiar with how you would go from a residential class to then I think you'd need to provide some applications to BC Assessment and show that you're actually generating income from a farm in order to receive that designation. I see Mr. Penson is here probably with some comments.
Thank you.
Thank you. A lot of the properties are in the ALR, so they do receive a reduction on some of their school taxes currently. All of the properties have retained the regional district zoning that they were when they came into the city as well. So they have those uses that are not currently allowed in the city in some cases, but how that will impact their taxes, I don't know. But
Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, Councillor Peabody through Mayor Price. Any impact that zoning would have would be through BC Assessment, in my opinion, in terms of the value of the land.
Gotcha. Okay, so in retrospect, there's really nothing the city can do to make the properties in this ALR area taxed differently than properties within the traditional city limits. Yeah.
Councillor Peabody through the Mayor, not that I'm aware of, no.
Great, thank you.
Councillor Ray.
Thank you. Charlotte, you may have touched on this already. I'm slightly undercaffeinated, so I may have missed this. But I understand that in 2009, so it would have been year 2 of this project, we were tracking 30 properties, I believe, that were in this situation of being in the lower tax rate. And so now here we are in 2025 and we're down to 20 properties. So I think there's some interest in the community about this. Is there anything further you want to comment on that? Is that the kind of the change you expected in those years?
Councillor Ray through the Mayor. Probably. I would, I wasn't involved in the project. I was very new to the city when this was even happening. And, some of these larger parcels, there may have been some expectation that some of them would subdivide and receive or reap the benefits of that. I really can't say. So,
And on the flip side, if we, look at this same expansion area, do we know the number of properties, like what the total number of properties are, and then, of course, what the number of properties are that are already paying the city tax rate? And it's okay if we don't, but it's just to give, I think, folks in the community an understanding of kind of what the tax situation looks like.
Councillor Ray through the Mayor, I just have a couple of high-level comments and then perhaps Mr. Penson has something to say. Anyone out in Shadow Mountain is paying city taxes. And it's that in-between area that, that are being affected by this. So many, even the original, of those original 10 properties, 30 properties, quite a few of them, some of it has certainly trickled in over time, but a number of them were out of that catchment fairly quickly.
Yeah, over the past dozen years or so, I think we've only had 3 or 4 actually rezone or service the lots or subdivide. Most of the rezoning or servicing actually occurred back in 2009, 2010 when the Shadow Mountain properties were originally developed. So there's been very little uptake in changing their tax status, and many people have been waiting to do stuff until they are forced to, essentially.
Councillor Papa.
Yes, thanks, Mayor. So of these 20 properties, most or all of them are in the agricultural land reserve. So for them to subdivide down to smaller unit lots, usually 5 acres is the cutoff, is how small a lot can get within the agricultural land reserve. So there are limitations because of the ALR to them subdividing down less than 5 acres. So are there, how many, I guess it's on one hand, we're increasing the city rate taxes, but on the other hand, they can't do anything with that land because the ALR is restricting them from creating rural sprawl, as we hear around the table.
So one of the items that our department's bringing forward as part of the budget, I know it was mentioned at the council meeting on Monday as well, is the planning for that northern area. It's starting hopefully next year, and part of that's to help us inform and work with the ALR, ALC, so pardon me, and the zoning to help set up these lands when they do have this new higher tax rate, that they can hopefully do something if the ALC will allow them to be removed from the ALR.
Mhm. Anything further, council? Okay. Jeanette, do we have any updates or inquiries from council members? Let's start with Council Popoff. Nothing. Councilor Ray.
Thank you, Mayor. Really quickly, one of the things we talk about in our community is seeking to be a vibrant community. And I just want to highlight a few aspects of vibrancy that we have going on. We're a busy community. There's lots of fun things to do. So Cranbrook Community Theater is doing a fantastic run of 39 steps. I was fortunate to attend with my daughter on opening night. They're sold out on most of their shows. They might still have some tickets for Halloween night, or for the 30th, it sounds like. So congrats, that's a hot ticket. So if you want to get into a show at Cranbrook Community Theater, you got to buy early. Key City Theater, seems like they have something going on virtually every night. Like, it is amazing. I don't know how they could get any busier. One of the events happened last night with Cranbrook Sunrise Rotary, the film series. It was an excellent film. We can all stay home and watch our streaming service or whatever, but it is nice to get out of the house and watch a film with other folks who really enjoy watching films. So I would encourage people to look at those monthly film events that come forward, and those are at the Key City Theater. Cranbrook Arts just wrapped up their latest art exhibition of 2 lifelong artists who've relocated here from Greston, and they're getting ready for their next exhibit as well. So if you haven't been to Cranbrook Arts to check out their latest show and or their gift shop, I would encourage you to do that, and you should think about signing up for a class as well. Those are also hot tickets. They had a class that sold out in like 3 minutes. So you got to be quick if you want to learn to do pottery or something there. Cranbrook History Center and Fort Steele have a busy list of activities related to Halloween. So people are looking for something to do. Have a look at their websites. Downtown Business Association is doing the classic and very fun downtown trick-or-treating. So that's coming up. And it's not just about arts and culture. If you want to watch some awesome volleyball, there's going to be volleyball at the college this weekend, I believe. So there's lots of things to do in Cranbrook. Get out there and enjoy.
Thank you very much. Councilor Bissett.
Thank you. We received an email from Danae Berry concerning a request to update or relook at our bylaw concerning backyard chickens. And I know staff, I remember staff doing a report on that. So I was just wondering if that might be able to come, you know, with permission of council, if we could bring that forward.
So Mayor Price through to Councilor Bissett, yeah, we can give council an update. We have, we've explored the policy level, but there's quite a number of steps of community engagement involving going further.
Okay.
And I just hesitate to commit the planning department as we're kind of like over our heads with development at this moment. But we do have it on our radar, and the policy level discussion was had through the OCP process. So we laid the groundwork for exploring that, but those next steps are a bit labor intensive. Okay. So it is on our radar though, however.
Okay, because I know work was done on it before. Yeah. Okay, well, thank you. And also, there was another email concerning the cemetery and the condition of the cemetery. And so much so that they said, well, maybe we should get a citizens group together to maintain it. And, it has come up multiple times over the years. And I just wonder what we're doing to do a better job of maintaining the cemetery.
So maybe I'll just start with, how we've restructured, just a few years ago. So in the past, Cranbrook hasn't had, really, we've had under Public Works, we do the, it's a big bug flying around here. We do maintenance on all the sports fields and parks, but we haven't had the dedication of, a parks manager. We had the parks foreman that was very dedicated to the role, but now through that exempt role and in being able to work across departments, we're getting more focus, and you saw that when we came forward with the cemetery master planning process, and now with some of the initiatives you see coming forward on the cemetery. So we will give council an update on some of the changes that have been made for enhancing the maintenance budget and some of the capital projects coming forward. So that is a upcoming update to council, just so you're aware. And if we want to go further beyond that, that'll be another conversation to council. But we've made quite a few steps, and it takes a little bit for grass and trees and stuff to show results. But we are significantly better off than we were just a few years ago, and we are going to continue to improve in that front.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Peabody?
Nothing to report. Thank you.
And I have nothing to report. With that, I'll ask for a motion to adjourn. Councillor Blissett, Councillor Peabody, all in favor? Thank you. We're adjourned. Thank you, guys. Good meeting.